Welcome to Lee Rogers Meets. Dean,
Good,
how are you?
good evening. Yeah, very well, thanks, Lee. Very well.
Excellent. You're looking on point. Where is that? Your office there?
It is the office. Yeah, yeah. On point, the Manchester brand as well. Just get that picture in there. Keep it real. Didn't look like this at the start of the pandemic and the lockdown. I can reassure you, but it's had a lick of paint and it's come on some.
Nice. Any other jobs during lockdown?
Oh yeah, all the usual. I fell into the DIY trap, to be honest. So yeah, plenty of DIY for the first few months, and then I got to the point of going, I'm getting far too ambitious. I'm getting ideas above my station. We better get some professionals in. So they kind of finish most of the jobs off, to be honest.
That's a story I know well.
You can
So
relate
much
to
so,
it.
my wife's like, "Yeah, I think it's time now. You need to pay some money."
Exactly. Nothing like a bit of ambition, though, right?
Yeah, I'm not the best DIYer in life, that's for sure. So I guess let's talk about lockdown. You just mentioned it. How's it been for you?
Yeah, do you know what, Lee? It's been good. I've it's not been without its challenges. I think what I take from lockdown, and I guess what I'd summarise is what I've learned is it's definitely about balance and finding what works for you, right? So the structure, as much as I didn't, I thought it was quite spontaneous, and I like to my days were quite varied. Actually, there is something in having some form of structure and certainty within your day, and I think we can all relate to it to a degree where that got turned upside down, right? So yeah, I think it was just about finding balance. Um, Not so much on a daily basis, but more helicoptering out, going, what does balance look like on a weekly and a monthly basis, and just making sure really that the different elements of your life, be it work, be it family, be it exercise, be it whatever it might be, um, just trying to make sure that they're in balance. I guess too much of a good thing, and too much of one thing is not a good thing, right? As they say.
So, and what have you cherished the most out of it then, if you've said it's been a good thing?
There's probably two things. First thing is the family time, right? Um, the amount of travel that I was doing pre-lockdown, a couple of hours a day, and getting that back, right? So like a lot of people, it was like somebody gave me an extra couple of hours in a day to begin with, right? Which was brilliant. Slowly but surely that time gets consumed. You work slightly longer, and before you know it, it becomes a new norm. But one of the things that I've tried to do religiously is each morning is do something with the kids before work, right? And it tends to just be a quick walk round the block with the dog, but it's become a bit of a ritual, right? And that was something that I never had the luxury of doing before. It was out early, didn't tend to see the kids before they got up. So definitely not taking that for granted, and is a biggie. Can I have two? Am I allowed to?
Go crazy.
Why not? I think the other thing for me is a big learning around adaptability or lack of it pre pre lockdown, if you will. So I thought I was somebody who was quite adaptable. What become clear was that exercise is definitely my anchor, right? And it's the go to. It's the happy place. And when the gym started to close, I struggled, if I'm honest. Oh, apologies. The kids are just deciding to come in. I'm just going to close the door. Yeah, close the door. See you in a bit, boys. There we go. That's what I loved so much about lockdown. There we go. Family time. Sorry. So going back to what I was saying was exercise was definitely the anchor. And when the gym shut down, I realised that actually without that I guess that certainty in a very uncertain situation, which was exercise for me, right, and the gym, was I said, well, it's all right, don't worry, I'll just adapt, right? I will do some home workouts or whatever that might be, and I really struggled with that to begin with, right, and it was more of a mental shift than a physical one, right, because you're in the gym and you're doing a bench press and you need a barbell and you need a bench and all the equipment. Yet you can do that at home, right? By doing a press up. Your body can't really differentiate between those two movements, but your mind can. And it was a real mental battle and a barrier that I had to overcome to go, look, you can still do your exercise. You just need to adapt and do it in a slightly different way. And that took some time. So I guess, yeah, the two great things. The family time definitely is up there, but also a real learning and a bit of self-awareness about myself around how I wasn't perhaps as adaptable as I thought I was, and how I've continued to improve that skill.
So moving forward then, I guess, what do you think that might look like in the future then? With with the time as maybe it's you go back into an office environment a little bit more, if not full time, and
yeah, I think one of the things I won't do is fall back into those old ways of I guess taking family time for granted, right? And there is an element of, look, my kids will hold me to this, right? As old habits die hard, right? So I say this now, right? I say we go back to the office. I'm gonna, I'll try to get home on time a bit more. There might be the odd day where I hang around for breakfast before setting off to the office, just to try and get that balance. And it won't be every day, right? Because busy work schedules, the demands are still going to be there. But as I say, just making sure that we have some kind of balance. I think touching it there that the kids will hold me to that, because pre-lockdown they never experienced, I guess, dad being around as often as I am now, and they'll hold me accountable if I fall back into the old habits of not being around as much, right? And because it's become the norm for them now, right? It's been nearly a year of seeing dad around a lot more. So yeah, I guess that's goes back to balance. I said it at the start. I think it's making sure when we go back to some kind of, and I don't want to call it the new norm or whatever that future state is, it's remembering how important that balance is for you, your own health and well-being.
And how does it make you feel when you talk about your kids not knowing or seeing dad around in the morning?
Yeah, do you know what? Not, I mean, you could probably see it in my face, to be honest. When I said it, not particularly proud of where I was at, I guess before. But there is a real balance. I tell you, we had a quid every time I said balance. I'm not on commission for using that word in this session, but there's a balance to be struck, right? Because, and there's two things going kind of odds with each other, because you go, I've got the ambition and the drive, and I'm doing all that thing for the family, for the kids, to give them perhaps what I didn't have growing up, and that's not gonna ever change. But equally, if you're doing all that and not spending the time with them, then really you're not necessarily providing for them in the best way. So I think it's just about making sure that you continue to, I guess it's making sure that those things are, aren't, you're not going either way too far, right? Because as much as I'd love to spend all day with the kids, most of the time, depending on how tired they are, that's not realistic. So yeah, I guess, like I say, it's just a case of striking that balance and making sure that over the space of a week, of a month, that you're not too far either way.
Now, I'm sure you're not the only leader watching this that will be thinking it, it's just you, right? I am sure there's many people pre-COVID, during COVID, thinking about future state, that they'll be wrestling with that whole balance, as you call it. My wife and I had a conversation. My daughter's in nursery. We're going, how do we do? And people all over the world, and many years of like battled this, have gone, how do you look after one child? I'm not talking 3 or 4. How do you look after one child with 2 parents working full time and school holidays? And we're going, well, you'll have to take some time off there, and you'll have to. And we're like, well, when do we join up as a family? And we went, well, we might have 2 weeks, or we might have a week. Like, how does that work? And genuinely, for the first time ever, we've gone. Our daughter goes to primary school, hopefully in September. And all this, the need for flexibility. And then we said, well, what do people used to do? And how was the working world then? So, this time, and I've said it before on this channel, it's tough. People have struggled, with COVID, losing loved ones, isolation, homeschooling, lots of challenges. But I think, if anything, certainly in the corporate world and for professionals, is to think, how can we do it differently? And how can we make the best and be more tolerant and more trusting, I guess, to produce and to focus on not just output, not just input in terms of hours, not just on output in terms of the number of things that you do, but actually on input. Is, I think, where I've got to.
I can completely agree. And I think, interestingly, one of the things that I did a lot of, actually, when I was traveling into an office kind of probably about 4 or 5 days a week, to be fair, and I spent time in the morning, right, clearing down emails, and I spent time at the end of the day also clearing down emails. And arguably that was time that I could have spent with the kids, my wife and kids, and as a family, right? But that became my routine. It was my email time, right? And it made me feel more in control and clear inbox, clear mind, right, for the day ahead. And as we went into various stages of lockdown, I always had a good moan about emails, right? I always moaned about how many we sent, and there was far too many, and all the rest of it. We came into working from home a lot more. The emails, the Teams calls tend to be back to back. You've got and even more emails were being sent. I'm like, God, this just doesn't feel right. And I was actually exercising and training with one of my friends, and he said to me, look, I have a dead simple ethos with our outlook on emails, and it is, the more you send, the more you're going to get back, right? And I was like, all these years I've been moaning about all the emails that I get. I'm just going to have a look through my sent items over the last week, right? And I was pretty horrified to see just how many I'd sent. So I made a vow to myself at the start of this year that I was only going to send an email if I couldn't speak to the person, right? Save it for a daily check-in that I've already got planned with my team, a weekly check-in that I've got with individuals, or I couldn't do it on a quick Teams message, right? I'd only say hit send if I couldn't do it in any of those other outlets. And what I found was I was sending very, very few emails, and lo and behold, I got very, very few back. Right? And I'm now in a situation where the amount of time I spend clearing emails, as I'd say, which was definitely non-value add to a degree, is far less than I was, only just a couple of months ago. And I think if I could already start to share that as a team, and if we could get a whole host of people behind that, I genuinely think that would be a big change to the way we're working, and would feed really well into that whole cliche of work smarter, not harder, right?
Great tip, and if that works for others that are watching this, then how awesome would that be, right? I always remember Gary Neville doing a talk in work, and he basically said, if I can't put it on a text message, I'm no longer going to do it. Right. So 140 characters or whatever.
Yeah.
That then goes, how do you make communication really effective? How can you simplify it? How can you, and whilst it just makes you think about audience and what, do you consciously choose your communication method, or do you just do it because it's a habit? And I think if you can put that thought process into it, wow, that's when you start to communicate on a different level.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Awesome. So let's think about, I'd love to know a bit more about Dean and your upbringing and your, I guess, career today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So, wow, upbringing. So one of four, the eldest of four. So I've got two brothers and a sister. Quite a humbling background, really. This isn't an X Factor sob story where I said we had no money and it was Oliver Twist. Please give me some more. But I guess it was quite a humble background. But one of the things that we definitely didn't go short of was that family time, right? And if I look back on my childhood, it was lots of time with my parents, a lot of time with my grandparents actually as well. So there's a bit of an age gap between me and my next brother, and then my brother and sister. Between us, so because of that age gap, me and my brother spent a lot of time with grandparents. Great upbringing. Learned some lifelong lessons, probably more so from my granddad, to be fair. And he constantly instilled into us the ethos of I can and I will. And to this day, I can still see him, I can still hear him say it. They used to take us hiking as kids, and there'd be these bloody big hills, right? And you'd look up at them, and they look like Mount Everest as a kid. They probably still feel like that now if I went up them. And I remember thinking, I've got no chance of getting up there. I've certainly got no chance of beating my granddad. And he was that, I can and I will. And lo and behold, you always got up there. And over the years, I then got to I got older, I got fitter, I got stronger. And I started to beat him up the hills, and it was just such a powerful message, to the point actually where I've got long sleeves now, but I've actually got it tattooed on me somewhere that I can now really. That's such a profound impact on me, and I guess to some degree spurred me on in my career and continues to do so. Right. So that's my childhood and I guess background in a real quick kind of rush through. I guess career wise, I guess if you look at it on paper, right, my career has I guess been quite a quick one in that it's accelerated through always been within a service and operations environment. Broad range of roles, largely in the telco sector as well, to be fair. A couple of organisations, roles from team leadership, service management, ops management, a couple of head of roles, and then leads me into where I am now as director of service. And it's been quite a fast paced, constantly operating outside my comfort zone. Learn a hell of a lot along the way, and I guess it's I've got a lot of people to thank for that, in terms of the support, the mentoring, the coaching, the guidance, and also really a number of people that believed in me and gave me opportunities perhaps when I didn't necessarily believe in myself. I've got there's a few people to thank for that.
And who are those people?
Yeah, sure. So I guess there's probably three people, and I wouldn't want to. There's far more than three people, right? But I think there's three people that really at very pivotal moments in my career, beyond the ongoing support that I've had from others. So there was a guy called Richard Chapman who gave me my first operations management role many moons ago, and I'm still very, very good friends with, actually. There was then a lady called Claire Breeze, who runs a very successful coaching and leadership organization. Went on a 2-day retreat, 2-day leadership workshop, which was a real game changer, not just in terms of my career and my outlook on that, but life, without getting too deep, I guess life in itself as well. You know, learned a hell of a lot in terms of my own self-awareness, my drivers, when those drivers are working well for me, when they're not. So yes, and ongoing support from Claire. And then I guess the other person that I owe it to is my current line manager, actually. So a guy called Dan Richardson, and I guess the reason I guess I'm sort of recognize, you know, the recognition there for Dan is, one, I came into this organization externally. So, you know, he's a smart guy, and, you know, it was a lengthy process in terms of the interview process, but, you know, he ultimately took a punt to a degree, you know, bringing me into the organization. And I guess there's also that it's the ongoing support and feedback that you get between, you know, a very experienced and supportive line manager. You know, you cannot underestimate what that is on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I guess those are the three, but, you know, a huge amount of support from lots of people along the way, particularly mentors. Actually, it's probably worth touching on mentoring in terms of the impact that had on me.
So you talked about your acceleration in your career. What would you say to young people watching this, that times are tough, you know, even to get on the job ladder, right, or to start their career? What would you say, or piece of advice would you give to people that are aspiring to, I guess, start a similar path?
Yeah, I think it's, the advice I would give is you know, there's no substitute for the hard work, right? Yeah, so I guess it's you definitely need to work for it. Yeah, no one's gonna kind of hand it to you on a plate, right? But what I would say is, be bold around what it is that you want to achieve, right? Because we can all work really hard, but I guess one of the things that I've done throughout my career has been very bold and above the line, and open about my ambition and what it is I'm you know, I want to achieve, and not in an arrogant way, far from it, actually. But it's by, if people don't know where it is you want, what it is, you know, you want to achieve and where it is you're going, then they absolutely cannot support you along the way, right? So I guess the first thing being working hard. Second thing is being bold and clear around what it is you want to achieve. And then the third thing is finding somebody within the organization where you work, or it might be externally, to be a mentor. And the reason why I'm so big and so much of an advocate of mentoring is I've been very fortunate to have had some good mentors along the way. I've never been offered a mentor, I don't think. I guess no, that's a lie, actually. So I guess my one of my current mentors was arranged, but most of the time I've gone, you know, I've approached these people that are in these big scary roles, and you know, sometimes it can feel quite intimidating, but ask them to be a mentor. And the reason why it's so important is, a mentor differs to a coach, right? So they focus on you know, building long-term capability, right, and helping you to get to where you need to be. They also tend to be well connected, right? So can help you network better, build relationships in areas that can lead to opportunities. But it is the old cliche of, you know, you can't put a price on experience, But ultimately, that's what a mentor's there to do, right? It's to share their experience. So there is, to a degree, it's an element of fast tracking the system, right? It's being able to take the learnings from somebody else's experience, perhaps, you know, in a much shorter time frame than you going through that whole journey and whole cycle yourself. And that's been really, really powerful.
Great. And what have been some of the challenges, or where have you had regrets in your career or life, bumps along the way?
No, it's been really linear, and I've never dropped the ball in my life, Lee. I wish. Do you know, there was a side of me that wishes I could say that, right? So the challenges are, going back to my drivers, right? So I had this real light bulb moment, like when I went on the retreat with Claire, and two of my drivers, my biggest drivers, are perfectionism and working hard, right? And as I mentioned, I've only ever worked in a service and an operations environment, which tends to be, it's not always perfect, is it? Right? It just isn't the nature of what we do. So that's always at odds with what I'm trying to achieve, right? Because in my mind, I'm going for perfectionism. And there was this one time when I worked previous organisation where I'd made a few bad decisions, right? It wasn't, and it's partly down to lack of experience, lack of judgment, and I'd made a few decisions that led to a few failures, and unfortunately these weren't internal KPIs. They were also quite public, and other organisations could see them. So the huge shame trigger for me, right? Because Dean the perfectionist here, right, is it's like the world's ended because I made a few bad judgment calls, and there was a few repercussions of it. Not to the degree that I was getting sacked or anything like that, but that'd have been for me, that'd have been best case, right? Because the way I was beating myself up about these decisions that I'd made was far from healthy. And I guess what happened in that situation was I continued to beat myself up about the decisions that I'd made. I then worked even harder to overcompensate, right? Because that second driver kicked in. That then led to tiredness, fatigue, because I kept going over it in my own mind, a loss of confidence, right? And then sure enough, you start in a bit of a downward spiral, right? And I was definitely not in a good place. And it got to the point of going, right, instead of me feeling like the longer I'm going on with this role, the more experience I'm getting, the more confident I'm feeling, I was going the other way. And I realized what I was doing was, when I was making a mistake, the mindset I had was not that I made a mistake, right? It was that I am a mistake, right? And that was just, I don't know how I got to that realization, but I did, and I'm really pleased that I did, because when you say it out loud, you go, no, not a mistake, right? I make some good decisions as well. I just made a mistake, and it was a complete reframing of the situation. And what that then did is I got curious about it, and I started to research different things, and I started to apply something called I don't know if it is called this, I've called it this, but just a self-belief cycle, right? So now what I do is I'll push myself out of my comfort zone. I will then either succeed, right, and achieve something, and I'll feel great, and it gives you that sense of confidence, and I'll move on and I'll do something else that pushes me outside my comfort zone. Or what I'll do is I'll fail, right? And it's that reframing of that again. Have I failed, or have I learned from it? Is it just something that I need to take a learning from? And I'll analyze it. And as you well know, Lee, I'll overanalyze it, but I will stop myself. And I'll go, right, that's the learning, bank it, learn from it, move on, reset, right? And again, we'll just go back in that cycle, push myself out of my comfort zone. I've now I've now got more experience because I've learned from the failure, whatever I didn't quite manage to achieve. We go back round. So I guess to answer your question, the biggest challenge I have actually faced in my career so far is probably myself, right? And the mindset of constantly striving for perfectionism. And whilst that's great at times because it fuels me and it drives me, it's knowing that when it becomes unhealthy, right? So there you go. Probably a long-winded answer to that question.
Hey how. I'm resonate though, right? Because I've just done a career journey story that I've not yet shared with my team or my function, and it was due to happen today and it got cancelled. But I very much talked in those terms. You know, the biggest challenge I said was myself. You know, it was imposter syndrome. It was, you know, then not asking for help soon enough. You know, I resonate with the mentor piece because I've always done that, you know, and I always call it informal mentor. And I don't just have one mentor, I have maybe two or three. And equally, I'd pay that forward. You know, if anyone came approached me and said, "Do you want to be a mentor or a coach?" I would do it in a heartbeat because I think it's almost that skills trade. I think back to, I don't know, the 1900s where you'd have a plumber or a plasterer and they'd kind of swap trades and there'd be no money exchange. It's kind of that approach to it. And, you know, people are so generous in my experience with their time and with their, you know, expertise that, you know, that they often give freely and willingly and humbly. And I think you can learn so much. But what they, in my mind, they give you is an opportunity, I think is what I've heard you say, to then go and embrace that and take that on for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, invaluable.
Awesome. So what's I guess what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? That's a great question. Not a lot with 3 kids, to be honest. What does keep me up at night? I guess what really difficult that because I guess I'm not too much of a worrier of at night, to be honest. I think what does keep me up though is the I guess a little bit around the whole, you know, what if syndrome, right? So you think about, it's probably, in fact, it's less what if, right? It's more the FOMO, you know, the whole fear of missing out, right? So, you know, I struggle sometimes with particularly big decisions, right? You know, when you kind of go, right, am I going the right way in my career, right? What about if I could see this opportunity? What about if I could do that? What could that lead to? So I think that's probably the bit for me, if I'm honestly, is that I've been very fortunate throughout my career so far that I've had lots of opportunities, and it's in turn, you know, some big successes, and that in turn has created more and more opportunities. But it's probably the, but what if I pursued this, or what if I went down this route? It's that's probably it, to be honest. You know, am I on the right track, or could it look a little different?
And what are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Yeah, sure. So, see, that I'm a bit more clear on. And you know, I'm a very optimistic and, you know, kind of forward thinking is where I'm at. If I look, let me answer this question by looking back then to go forward. So if I look back over what I've achieved so far, is I've always gone to drive, you know, business outcomes. And, you know, in leadership roles, we've always driven business outcomes, as a group of people, as a function, as a unit, which is kind of my motivation, right? And that's been great. But if I'm being really honest, what I'm excited about in the future is, I guess, spending more time and dialing up that investment and development in people, right? And I generally hold the belief that, if I ever was to spend, even more time investing and developing and supporting people, that actually those business outcomes would not only be achieved, but they'd be even better than they are today, right? So I guess it's just it's taking a bit of a rain check on, how have I been focusing my time to deliver those outcomes so far, right? And it's certainly not without not investing in people, right, and supporting individuals, because you can't do it on your own. But I guess the future for me is just flipping the balance a little bit and dialing that up even more, and just to see where that leads.
Awesome. And what do you do for fun?
Fun. Well, when the gyms are open, hopefully Forrest will be giving an announcement in a couple of days and giving us some hope and some line of sight on that. The gym is gym and and/or exercise, right, is a biggie for me. Then there's probably time with the family. That's always great to just kind of switch off. We've got a dog as well, so getting lost twice a day, not getting lost, that wouldn't be so helpful, would it? But twice a day, taking the dog out, kind of getting lost in thoughts and that whole mindfulness and switching off. And then look, no judgment here, right? But probably the last one is good old reality TV. As much as I say no judgment, but sometimes I pass this off as, Sarah was watching such and such a thing. But the truth be told, if she turned it off, I'd be going mad. So it can't be a bit of reality TV. Helps to switch off the mind, normalizes things, puts things into perspective if things are getting a bit too a bit too heavy and a bit too pressurized. So that's me.
And what's your favourite reality TV?
I knew that was coming. Did you not see me stall then to go, am I actually going to offer this up? I'll tell you what I'm watching at the minute. The last one, actually, and it started 10 minutes ago, is Celebs Go Dating.
Interesting.
I'll let you interesting. And don't worry, it's on record. So I'll get to watch the whole lot. Oh dear. This was going so well until that question, wasn't it?
No judgment from me. I can't say that from other people, though. I don't know how they will feel.
Well, we'll see, won't we? I'm sure.
No, genuinely, massive pleasure to do this. Thank you for giving your time so freely. I really appreciate it, and being so open and honest, even about your TV choice.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you very much.
I've got one final question for you, though.
Go for it.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh. That's a great question. Growing up, I always wanted. I didn't know what I wanted my legacy to be, right? But I wanted my family name to mean something, right? And then over the last, couple of years, I've kind of got to the stage of going, actually, is that important? I think for me, I think I'd want my legacy to be something around. You're gonna get a fluffy answer here. Something around authenticity, right? And how the you don't need to be this corporate polished, scripted, almost appear to be, perfect individual to achieve, career success or whatever it is that you want to achieve in life, right? I think what we tend to find, and I've battled with this a lot through my career, is we see others in those roles and almost mutate and I guess copy what they do, right? And we lose touch with who we are, right, as individuals, and lose touch with our authentic selves. So I think for me, the legacy that I want to kind of get out there is, do you know what? He was himself. He wasn't necessarily the polished, the perfect, the this, the best, or whatever it might be. But that's fine, right? You can still have a huge amount of success in your life, arguably a lot more, and enjoy it a hell of a lot more by just being you, right? And recognizing that being you is enough. The deep answer to that, wasn't it?
Yeah. The final question. I'm sneaking one in. What does success mean to you?
Success means getting to the end, whenever that is, and having no what ifs. Yeah. Not a few years back, I'd have said it's becoming CEO and having the £1 million house and all the rest of it, right? And as much as I'd love to have all those things and a lot more, actually, I'm kind of cool with not necessarily getting there, providing that I've given it a shot. And yeah, when I get to the end, looking back, having no what ifs, that's for me what success is.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for your time, Dean.
Cheers, Lee. Thanks for having me.